Welcome back to the Cat Dad Show. I'm your host, Scott Colby. Now, have you ever wondered what your cat is really trying to tell you? Are they unhappy? Are they lonely? Are they in pain? Or maybe just being annoying as cats can be? Well, in this episode, I have a special guest, Denise Dunlavy, an animal communicator and intuitive. And we're going to talk about those hidden messages our cats are sending us every day and how we can develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and our cats. We're also going to talk about how to communicate with our cats after they've passed away. So I'm super excited about that. We've got all this and more. Denise, welcome to the Cat Dad Show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say I love what you're doing to honor your cats. My two cats are my life. I don't know what I would do without them. And so I'm so excited to talk about everything cats today.
I love it. Isn't this cool? A cat podcast. But
Yes,
yeah,
love it.
thanks for saying that. We've been having a lot of fun here. Now, I want to just kind of jump right in. A lot of people wonder if their cats are trying to tell them something important, like are they unhappy or are they in pain? What are some signs that our cats may be communicating something we should pay attention to?
Well, there are several different signs. One thing to look for is if your cat is doing something out of the ordinary. So they have their normal routines. They like to do things a certain way. So if all of a sudden they're doing something that they don't normally do or that seems unusual to you, then they are probably trying to tell you something. But that doesn't mean it has to be bad. Sometimes they're just communicating that something is going on with them. And then there's the obvious signs, litter box issues, right? I get a lot of questions about litter box issues. And sometimes it's literally just, I don't like my litter anymore, or I want to move my box. But sometimes they're saying, hey, I'm trying to tell you something. Please listen to me.
Yeah. And when we talk about communicating with our cats, is that something we can all learn to do, or do we have to have special abilities like you have?
I believe that everyone can communicate with
Okay.
their animals. And I actually teach animal communication. And I learned because I tried it. I didn't always know that animals were trying to tell me things. So there is a process that you can go through. But the important thing is to kind of get out of your own head. So if you can take a few moments to let go of the chatter, I like to meditate. But just being present and focused and trying to kind of tune in to your animal. We're all intuitive. And so checking in with a feeling. What kind of feeling do you get from your pet? Do you think they seem happy or unhappy? And then kind of go from there, like what's changed? What's different? And another really important thing is to look at what's going on in your own life. Because more often than not, our animals, and especially our cats, are reflecting something back to us. So if they're acting like they're really annoyed, there might be something that's annoying you. Or if all of a sudden they're anxious, I recommend looking at, is there something going on in your life that's making you anxious? Because they are so in tune with us. They feel our emotions, they feel what's going on with us. And so sometimes they're just telling you, hey, look at this. If you can relax, then I can relax.
Okay. So a lot of times if we're anxious, our cats are going to be anxious. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
I want to dive more into that in a little bit. Denise, we already have a question here, and it's about your classes. So I do want to get to that here. Atlanta, Brooklyn gal, where can we find out more about the animal communication classes that you teach, Denise?
Well, the best place to start is on my website. It's intuitivedenise.com. And I start with a workshop. So it's 2 hours. It's super easy to jump in. I go through the steps. So I'm very organized. I have a kind of a type A personality. So it's first you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And so we go through the steps, and then we actually practice talking to one of my pets. So you get to see what it feels like. And then if you feel like you're able to communicate or you are just called to do more work, I have a more in-depth class after that.
So, can you tell us, like, I want to dive into this a little bit more. Can you tell us a little bit more about the process, about how we would practice communicating with one of your cats?
So the main thing about learning animal communication is that we are all intuitive.
Okay.
We're born with intuition, and from a very young age, we are taught to turn that off, right? We're told, here's how you're supposed to act, or we're taught to overanalyze things, to really think about what we're doing. And so we learn to override that intuition. So when I'm teaching animal communication, I'm really teaching, how do you get back to yourself? How do you get back to being able to listen and tune in a way that you're kind of turning off your thinking brain?
Hmm.
And one thing that we focus on is using your other senses to communicate with animals. So we're used to talking in words, and our animals don't do that. So they often talk in images or feelings. And so you're trying to turn off that thinking and notice maybe what images come into your mind or what feelings you get in your body. And that's how we communicate with them. It's kind of hard to explain
Yeah.
because it's not using words, but it's about getting into the right space to be able to use those other senses.
Denise, you're asking a lot from us. We have to turn off our brains. How do we do that?
I know.
That's why people
It's
that's why people have trouble sleeping. But yeah, I mean, really, that's probably right, like where the meditation comes in, right? That you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so I always meditate before I do a session, and that helps me get into the right space. And I also think of it as increasing my vibration because I also feel that animals vibrate at a higher level than we do. But so I'm doing a meditation to kind of meet them where they're at. However, when I teach, I don't think that meditating is the only way to do that because it's definitely not for everyone. So, another way to kind of turn off your thinking brain is dancing or listening to your favorite song. So, if you think about anytime you've been in the car, you turn up the radio really loud, you sing along to your favorite song, you are feeling it in your body and you're no longer thinking. Does that make sense to
Mhm.
you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So
Uh,
I like to recommend other ways that you can do this so it's not like, oh, I have to go sit and be quiet and not think about anything.
Yeah, and I actually have a health and fitness background, and I love meditating, but it's hard for some people. So I'm glad you gave us some other options to kind of slow down and be a little bit more present. I want to jump into communicating with our cats after they've passed. I lost two cats over the last 5 years. One was just last year, and I'm just picturing what could they be saying to me right now? And so, how does that actually work? Some people can't really conceptualize how would we even talk to our pets after they've passed over. Can you give us just a little rundown about how that actually works?
Sure. Uh, well, the short answer is I don't know exactly how it works. It's all physics. But what I do when I communicate with any animal is I'm connecting to their energy.
Okay.
And so you can do that across time and space. It's all about how we're all made of molecules and atoms, and so we can communicate with anything else that is also made of that same material. And animals who are in spirit, they still have souls. And I really only know this because it works, because I'm able to talk to animals and people say, yes, that's exactly what they're like. So the first thing I do is I try to ask them about their personality.
Mm.
So, or I imagine them in front of me. and I kind of say, what are you doing? And if they come right over and start rubbing up against me, usually the person will say, oh, that's exactly what my cat would do if they saw me. And so I start by trying to identify them. And it happens enough times that people say, yes, that's exactly what my pet would do, that I'm confident now in my ability to do that. But there are lots of questions that I have lined up that I ask animals in spirit. And so I don't know exactly where they go, but they tell me what it feels like. So I ask what it feels like where they are. I also like to ask if they're with anyone, because they are often with other pets that we've had and throughout our lives, or other humans. Sometimes there are humans there with them that are connected to the person that you're reading for. It doesn't have to be somebody that they know. I also like to ask what signs they're sending, because sometimes it's something like a rainbow or a butterfly that when this person sees this, they'll know it's coming from their pet in spirit. And then I also end up asking a lot of questions sometimes about their passing. And that is because people have so much guilt. There is never a good way to lose a pet, because if the pet passes on their own, someone feels like, I should have done more, I should have known something was going on. But then if they have to help them pass, they also feel guilt about that. So that's not one of the questions that I ask first, but I always leave time in my sessions for the person to ask whatever they'd like. And so if they're having any feelings about the actual passing, I will ask the animal about that as well.
Yeah, you're right. Like guilt, I feel like is, and I don't have any data to back this up, but from what I've observed and being in pet loss support groups, guilt seems to be that number one emotion that people are feeling after losing their pet. Just like, things that you said, or, even an accident, like a dog ran out in front of a car, and just the guilt can be tremendous. I have guilt, especially from my first one that passed away, Nomar, because he didn't have anything diagnosed, and I almost thought like, gosh, we didn't try enough. Mia, she had a lot of illnesses, and I cared for her, was her caretaker for her last few years, and just kind of, she declined slowly, and I think that was the right time, but it was tough with that first one. Now, you're asking the animals these questions. They don't, all right, I know this sounds funny. They don't speak English and answer you back. How are you receiving the answers back?
So I sometimes see things in my mind's eye.
Okay.
So it's not with my actual eyes. And the best way to describe it is, it's like using your imagination. So it feels like it's just in your head, but images will pop up that just came out of nowhere. It wasn't something I was thinking about before. Sometimes I hear words as well. And sometimes it's a feeling. With animals that are in spirit, I almost always feel really peaceful and calm. And I just love talking to animals that are on the other side, because they are pure energy and pure love, and they don't have to worry about a body anymore. But I also get feelings in my actual body. So, for instance, if I ask an animal how they passed, I might feel something in my heart, or I might feel something in my stomach. So that's how they let me know, is that I feel it in my own body.
When you're doing a session, a medium session, are you gathering, do you communicate with the owner first and get a lot of information and pictures of the animal, or how does like the beginning of the process work?
So I don't want to know a lot about the pet. When people book through my website, I have some questions for them to answer. And one of those is uploading a picture. So I do like to have a photo, and there's a couple reasons for that. One is that it takes a lot of the guessing out and prevents me from getting in my own head. Because, for instance, if I'm talking to well, it comes through more with dogs. If I'm talking to a Chihuahua that comes through and says, I have a huge personality, that tells me more that that's how they feel about themselves than rather than their actual size.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps alleviate some of the guessing. But I also like to imagine in my mind's eye the animal in front of me. And I ask them to show me what they like to do. Like if they have a favorite memory, I will often see an image and they'll show me what they look like doing that. So it just helps to have a picture, but I don't have to have one. And the other thing that I do ask is I ask for their sex and their age, and that just helps me. So again, I'm not guessing. I just use the right pronouns when I'm talking about them. But people can enter their questions, but they don't have to. I don't need those ahead of time because I don't ask them until I get started.
Hmm. Yeah, and we chatted a little bit about people grieving, feeling guilty, and I imagine being able to communicate with an animal on the other side can do wonders for somebody going through that grieving process. Is there maybe a story you can share about a time when an animal on the other side brought peace or closure to the owner, and how did that communication help in the healing process?
Well, it can be so helpful to understand what the pet is going through or what they're thinking. I talked to a kitten one time who had passed away,
Yeah.
and it really didn't live very long. And what she said was, I just kind of wanted to check this out. I was just trying it out, and I really wasn't meant to be there for a long time.
Oh,
And so it helps to understand the process of what's going on because animals often have a reason for what they're doing or what they're going through. It's very common that an animal will pass when there is a transition happening in a person's life.
hmm.
So I had recently it was a dog who passed away, and the owner was pregnant. And the dog said, you've got a new baby coming. You need to have the energy and the space to take care of them. And this dog specifically said, I feel complete. My life was complete. So it was time for me to go and for you to now focus on the new life coming to you.
Yeah.
And so there are messages like that where they can tell us the reasons behind what's going on, or just letting us know that they appreciated their life. I do like to ask about their favorite memories or if they had a purpose. And often another thing that comes up is they're here to support us through something that we're going through in our life. And once we get through that, they feel like they can go because we don't necessarily need them as much. We still want them here and it feels like we need them, but sometimes they've fulfilled their purpose.
That's fascinating. I would love to dig into that a little bit more. This kind of that animals have this purpose in our lives. How can we, as the owner, figure out what that purpose is, and how can understanding this purpose kind of deepen our relationship with our cats or our animals?
Well, first of all, it takes some introspection. So, looking at what's going on in your life, when did this animal come into your life? And what have you been going through?
Okay.
So, animals come for healing. When we have a soul contract with an animal, that is something that we make before this lifetime. So we come in with a purpose, and those are always for healing. So, for instance, you might have a cat who is dealing with abandonment issues. Very often, the owner is dealing with abandonment as well, or like anxiety. I mentioned that. Another thing that comes up a lot is that people will have the same health issue as their animal at the same time. A really interesting example is urinary infections. I see this come up with cats a lot when their owners are stressed out about something. So,
Mhm.
stress for some reason seems to manifest as urinary infections.
So we need to chill out as humans.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it.
Yeah.
But like for me, my cats have multiple purposes in my life, but during COVID, I don't know what I would have done without them. You
Mm.
know, I'm single, I live alone, and I had my cats there that whole time, and we were so close. They entertained me, they kept me company. That it meant so much. And so, even just to me, looking back and reflecting, I can see the effect that they've had. But another purpose, one of my cats, his name is Declan, he is very much a teacher. So he helps me teach animal communication. He helped me to understand that I could communicate with animals. And shortly after I started doing this professionally, it was probably about a year in, he got really, really sick.
Mm.
And I thought I was going to lose him. And I really felt like he fulfilled his purpose. He let me know that I should do this work and he supported me in that. And then I was afraid he was complete with that, so he was going to leave. But he didn't. He rebounded and he got better and he's still with me, um, but I do still believe that was really one of his purposes, and he has found new things to learn and contribute to my life.
Mm. And Declan, he's on your lap now.
Yes, he is. He's if I
You're gonna wake
wake
him
him up, the
up. Okay.
yeah,
Hi, buddy. Hi, handsome.
he almost always with me when I'm doing readings or when I'm on Zoom meetings. He loves to make appearances.
And how old is he? And then also tell me a little bit about your other cat.
So he just turned 12.
12. Okay.
And my other cat's name is Shay, and they are from the same litter.
Oh, all right.
So I fostered them for a cat shelter in Chicago, actually. And of course, I didn't think I was going to keep them, and I could not give them back.
Yes.
When it
Foster
was
dad.
time, yes, I was just like, I'm the only person they've ever known. I can't let them go. But they have both proven to be very spiritual and contributed to my growth and helped me through this whole process of becoming an animal communicator.
Mhm. And Shay is
Female.
a female, so you have a boy and a girl. Okay. So
Hmm.
my two that I just got a few months ago, they're from the same litter, bonded brothers, and so they needed to be adopted together.
Oh,
Um, I guess the universe knew I needed two more. You used a phrase that I wasn't familiar with a few minutes ago, soul contract. What the heck is that?
yes. So you might have heard other people talk about a soul animal.
Yeah.
People often feel very connected to one of their pets. We love all of our pets, but
Mhm.
sometimes there's one that they just feel like, oh, there's something special here, and those are usually soul contracts. And that is when you have a contract with your animal. It's a subconscious spiritual contract where you're meant to find each other in this lifetime. And the purpose is usually for healing. And so we don't often know what that is at the time, but you'll feel called to adopt a certain animal, or they will just be so attached to you that you can't deny that there's a close bond there. And so when that comes up, it's usually a soul contract.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks for clarifying that. And I have heard of soul animals, soul pets, and it's hard. Like, well, I love them both equally, which But I think with my two previous ones, it was hard because Nomar passed away first, and then Mia kind of took care of me and helped me,
Mhm.
and my bond with both of them was very great. But I just felt after Nomar passed, the bond between Mia and I just like it was so strong. And
Yes.
yeah.
And that is part of that soul contract, is that she was there to help take care of you after
Mm-hmm.
that. But that doesn't mean you don't have a soul contract with your first
Right.
cat, you know, with both of them. But there sometimes there's just a feeling,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel that I have soul contracts with both of my
Right.
cats. They're both have different purposes. Their personalities are completely different. So their role in my life is a little bit different, but I'm so bonded to both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nomar, who passed away 5 years ago, he like, I'm getting out of here before COVID, I guess. But then like your cat's Mia kind of helped me through. I live alone as well. And she helped me through that process of being alone with COVID.
Yes.
Just,
You know what's funny about that is that at the beginning of COVID was when I really started focusing more on my business because I had more time.
mhm,
And there were so many animals passing at that time. It was not a coincidence that there were a lot of souls choosing to leave the planet then. And I don't know exactly why, but it was definitely noticeable.
really. Okay. Fascinating.
Mhm.
We've talked some about how animals can reflect our emotions back to us. And I want to dig into that a little bit more because I find all this fascinating, but I find that fascinating as well. Can you explain a little bit more about how our cats might be showing us something about ourselves that we might be missing, and maybe how we can identify these things?
Well, I think that it's so much easier for us to focus on our pets than to do healing or introspection on ourselves.
Mm,
So we often get very focused on, oh, they're doing something weird or they're doing something strange. And we sometimes will take better care of our pets than we take of ourselves.
mm,
And so anytime there's something going on and you're trying to figure it out, I recommend just looking at yourself and just thinking about what's going on in your life. I actually talked to a cat one time who said there was an argument in their house. And ever since then, everybody's been in a bad mood. And so it was affecting the cat. But they didn't realize it until the cat told me this. And it was actually not an argument between the couple. It was that they were working at home and someone had a work thing happen.
mm.
And the cat was saying, "We need to move. We need a new home. We need a change out of this space where this happened." So so just looking at anything that's going on in your life and your space. So it may be just a bad day. It may be that you're in a bad mood one day and you might not even realize it because it's just something that is going on that you're not thinking about. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is to, like, I recommend just thinking about the options. Have you changed their food? Has something changed in the routine, or have you traveled recently? So anything like that, it could cause a slight change in their behavior. But if there's nothing, if you can't think of anything that might be affecting them, then that's the time to say, okay, what's going on with me?
Mm. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like we often will pay closer attention to our pet's health than
Hmm.
our own. So like I'll be really diligent or diligent, whatever the word is, in taking my cats to the vet. I was like, oh, this doesn't seem right. Let's go to the vet. For me, I'm like, the doctor, I'll skip the doctor. Even regular checkups, I'll definitely make sure they go, but I don't always do that for myself. So very,
Right. So I have a really interesting story
yes,
about
please.
someone that their cat was throwing up a lot.
Mm,
And they'd been to the vet, and the vet couldn't find anything wrong. So they'd gone a couple times. And so they reached out to me, and the cat said, "Well, Dad has something going on with his stomach and he needs to go to the doctor. And they confirmed that that was true, that something was going on. He had not made an appointment. And once I let the cat know that they got the message and that he was going to go to the doctor, the cat stopped throwing up.
Oh, wow.
So they can, like, these things can even manifest physically for them, just to show us, like that was a direct message of like, something's going on in the stomach, you need to get it checked out.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, so fascinating.
It is. It's crazy, and that doesn't always happen. But that was just a case where, as soon as we talked about it and figured that out, the cat got better.
Yeah.
So I am not a vet, and I don't claim to be able to cure any ailments, but I do have people come to me sometimes when an animal seems to be sick, but they can't figure out what it is. You can only do so many tests, and you can spend a ton of money at the vet. And sometimes it helps just to ask them what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Just ask, right? Now that we know how to communicate with our animals.
Yeah.
So we do have another question coming in from audience here. And if you are watching live, feel free to ask questions. She said, have you experienced pets coming back several times to the same person and owner, but in different pet bodies? So is that like reincarnation?
Yes. So I did not know about reincarnation until I started doing this work, but I have met or talked to pets who said they were definitely coming back to the same person. And they will also say that they've been together in past lives. So I've heard that before. I've also heard them coming back. And I know someone personally who had a dog as an adult, and she is 100% confident that this was her cat as a child. And she says that she knew right away when they got this dog, she had a lot of cat tendencies. So she would sleep a lot, would, kind of wanted things on her terms. And so, yes, they can come back to us in a different form. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's different.
Yeah. And just also to add on to that, one of my upcoming guests talks about reincarnation. She's an animal communicator and medium as well, but also is very knowledgeable in reincarnation. And so we're going to be digging into that. So stay tuned.
Yes, that is great. And I'm not an expert. I just know what the animals have told me. Most of what I've learned is through talking to animals, and more things come up that they tell me that I'm like, oh, well, I guess that's true.
Yes, right. Oh, gosh. Now, I know you work with people to awaken their spiritual power through their connection with the animals. How can our relationship with our cats help us grow spiritually?
Well, cats are very spiritual animals. And even if you think about the Sphinx, they were symbols for in ancient times of spirituality. And so there's a couple different ways. One, what the reason that my cat Declan inspired me is that one time I was holding him like a baby, and I was looking into his eyes, and I thought, he is looking right into my soul. I could feel that he was on a different level. And so just being with animals is spiritual in itself. But also, I do think they can inspire us just to be able to communicate with them. So on my journey, I started, actually, if I go all the way back, I didn't know I could talk to animals. And it wasn't until people kept telling me I was psychic that I started investigating. After the second or third person said this to me, I was like, I wonder what that's all about. So I started reading about spiritual topics, and I started meditating, and I started taking classes about intuition. And so that background, then once I found animal communication, allowed me to do it very easily. And so I feel like our pets can inspire us, especially anyone that wants to communicate with them better. The key is trusting your intuition, because it's not as obvious as talking to a human. You don't just hear the words. You have to trust that it's coming from them.
Now, why were people telling you that you were psychic? Like, were you predicting things?
I no, I wasn't not predicting the future,
Yeah.
but I just know things.
Mm,
So when I meet someone, I often, and other people probably experience this too. I have a good or a bad feeling about them, or I intuitively know how they're feeling. Very much an empath,
mhm.
and I didn't know what that was at the time, but I always thought that I was just good at reading body language, or I just paid more attention than other people did. I didn't realize that that was actually my intuition, because sometimes I have what's called claircognizance,
Mhm.
which is clear knowing. So I just know things sometimes, and I don't know how I know them. And so that can be very difficult. It's a lot different than like having an image pop into my head or hearing a word. So, that's really why is I was just very in tune with other people that I met.
Yeah. Nice. For somebody who wants to explore the spiritual bond with their cat, where's a good place to start if they've never even thought about doing this before? Is there any simple practice they can try at home?
Yes. Well, one thing you can do is be or practice mindfulness
Mhm.
with your pet. So just being present. And what I recommend is turning off the TV or the stereo, or just being in silence with them, and maybe even closing your eyes and just feeling their presence. So just being in the same space with them, and think about it as sharing energy.
Mhm.
You're being in the same energy with them. You can also meditate with your pet. A lot of people notice if they start meditating, their pets are will gravitate towards them.
Okay.
They want to sit on their lap, or they want to be in the room with them when they're doing that. And I also suggest this a lot for anxious pets, that anything you do to help yourself will also help your pet. So that could be lighting a candle, taking a bath, reading a book and being really calm, or putting on calming music. All of those things will be calming and help your pet with their anxiety as well. So you can think about it as doing those things with your pet.
Okay. Now, the cat, since we're talking about cats, they have to
Mhm.
be agreeable to this in the sense that, cats often will just wander off, do their own thing. We want it to be, or correct me if I'm wrong, we want it to be a time where they're calm already, or
It
setting.
doesn't have to be. It
Okay,
doesn't have to be, because what you're doing is you're creating the calm.
you're creating the calm.
So, yes, so you want to create that. And if they want to join you, or if they're feeling that, they will be more likely to be drawn to you or to the area that you are in. Or you can just be in the same room with them. It's really all about the energy.
Hmm.
So you can imagine feeling calm, or feel what that's like in your body, and think about sending that to them. So you can actually create the energetic space to kind of reach out to them energetically.
Yeah. I love it because I feel like these are things we should be doing even if we don't have pets, because we're a stressed and overwhelmed society with too much technology, too much information, a lot of things going on in our lives. We need our own calm. So I
Mhm.
like practicing this stuff even if we don't have pets, but even better if we do have cats, and they'll benefit as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And another thing that I just thought of that I really like is humming.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you think about humming, if you put your hand on your chest and you just You can actually feel the vibration there,
Yeah.
and your cats will feel that as well. And so you can send that as kind of a vibrating message to them, just to be calm and to be present.
Nice. I love that. And that's easy to try. I'm sure there's skeptics out there about communicating with your pets. What are maybe some of the biggest misconceptions out there when it comes to trying to communicate with your animal?
Well, the first thing that I would say about that is that if you're skeptical, it is less likely to work. One of the things I do is I ask people to tell their pet that I'm going to talk to them, and also to give them permission. And the the energy around that and the collective kind of excitement and belief helps make the communication more clear. So I can definitely tell if somebody's skeptical. Often that makes their pet skeptical as well. So they don't necessarily want to talk as much.
Mhm.
The other thing is, I just recommend, if you're not sure about it but you want to try it, to go in with an open mind and just be accepting of the process. I always walk people through it so they don't have to do anything. They don't really have to know anything about it, and to give honest answers. So I will always check in and I will ask people, does this sound like your pet? And I just ask people to be honest. If it doesn't, then I go back and I might ask the question in a different way or try to get more information. And the way that I look at it is, some animals communicate better than other animals. And so it is always possible that an animal won't come through. And if that's the case, I just refund someone's money, or we can always reschedule and try again. But I'm not doing this to try and convince anyone. I'm doing this to be helpful and to give the pet a voice, so that they might not otherwise have.
Yeah, nice. I know we've talked about, like, if a pet owner wants to tune into their cat's needs and emotions more deeply, what's a good kind of first step for those folks? If I want to tune in, I've got two new cats. I want to tune into their emotions and needs a little bit more deeply, their needs of whatever they might need at the time. Where could I start with them?
The first thing is to be intentional
Okay.
about it. So set a time and a space and say, okay, I am going to tune in to my animal right now. And I recommend doing one at a time. And maybe start with yes or no questions. And so asking, like, do you like your food? And then you might get more specific. Do you like the chicken, or do you like the tuna? And
They eat their food in 5 seconds. So
yeah, so you have your answer. So yes, so that those are the things to pay attention to as well. We
Okay.
are often very in tune with our pets because we live with them. We,
Mm.
like, you already know they like their food, right? So that's not something you need to ask them. So when it comes to the other questions you might have, just think about how you know that they like their food. You can read their body language, but that's what I would recommend, is starting with, like, yes or no questions, and just tuning in and feeling into a yes or a no. A yes might have a light feeling and might feel good in your body, or a no, you might actually find yourself leaning. You might find yourself leaning back or away. And so that's the best place, I think, to start, is with yes or no questions.
Yep. And you said if we have two cats, do this separately.
Yes.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean you have to separate them, but
Right.
just focusing on one and setting the intention of who you're talking to. The other thing is that I do everything with love. So before every session, I set the intention that it's for the highest and greatest good. And what I do is I feel love in my heart. And what I think about how much I love my own cats. And then I imagine sending this ball of love or this feeling to the animal that I'm going to communicate with. So you can do that with your own cat. You can send them this love and think of it as almost like an energetic cord that's connecting you to them. So you can do that first, setting the intention and sending them love, and then feeling into the questions that you want to ask them.
Cool. I love that. I'm going to try that. Another question kind of popped in from the audience. Denise, you're popular.
Awesome.
So she says, does Denise ask permission from the pet's spirit guide as well before doing a reading?
I don't specifically ask the spirit guide. What I will say is that sometimes spirit guides show up. So sometimes a cat will have their own spirit guide, and so I can communicate with them as well. But really, I'm asking permission from the animal themselves and from their person.
Awesome. Thank you.
And so animals can have their own spirit guides, and they can also act as spirit guides. So especially with pets in spirit, when I'm doing mediumship readings, they might say, I am now a spirit guide for my person, and I'm here to protect them and look after them. And you have a little guest there.
I got someone.
Yay.
This is his first appearance on the show. Usually they sleep the whole time. This is Nico.
Oh, hello, Nico.
Hi, buddy. We're in the middle of an interview, but we're almost done.
Yes.
Good boy.
So, but spirit guides are very important. And I can ask a spirit guide to come forward for an animal. I don't always do that, and unless the person asks me to, but sometimes they just show up.
Yeah. And I know you've also mentioned energy healing in your work. How can things like Reiki or other forms of energy work benefit our cats? And is this something we can learn to do ourselves?
So I definitely believe that you can. Reiki. So I'm certified in Reiki. And when you do that, you take classes and they give you what's called an attunement. So it's kind of just an introduction and a training. But I believe anybody can do this because our hands and touch are so powerful that putting your hands on your cat can be very healing. And so I believe it's all about setting the intention. And again, doing things with the idea of love and healing with that. So I've used this with cats that have been through a surgery. So someone might ask me to do Reiki on them during their healing process. So I might do it a couple of days in a row. And you can also send Reiki energy remotely. You don't have to be there. But if someone is going to do it themselves, what I recommend is just putting your hands on your pet and just being intentional and thoughtful about it. With the idea of sending love.
Yeah, nice. I do that anyway.
Yes. Another energetic practice that I really love for cats is grounding. Because they can if they can say get wound up or get anxious and have other issues that they might get in their head, and you can energetically give your cat a grounding cord. So it starts at their heart chakra, and you just imagine an energy ball going from their heart all the way down to the center of the earth. And it connects them to Mother Earth and nature energy. And so this is something that I recommend, again, for pets that are anxious. And that's something that you can easily do for them.
Yeah. So how do we actually do that? You mentioned grounding for the cat. What do we do with the cat? How does that actually look?
So you're doing it with your thought. So yes, energy is thought. And so you can move energy that way. So again, you're setting the intention. So I will usually do a grounding cord for myself and then also do one for my cats.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we have somebody in the audience just said, hi, Denise, Vivian. So
Oh,
maybe you know her.
oh, I do know her.
Yeah.
Hi,
Great.
Vivian. Thanks for watching.
And Denise, yeah. So first of all, I want to acknowledge the work that you're doing. I love hearing about this, and just I think anything we can do to create a more connected bond with our animals is amazing. And thank you for doing that work. And also, I think it's fascinating that we can communicate with our pets after they've passed away. I'm excited to learn more about that. But just, your pets are our lives. You're making the world a better place by helping us create better connections with our pets. So I wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And that's really my goal,
Mm,
is to make life better for pets and their parents.
nice. And Vivian had a comment, which leads us into kind of our kind of closing here. She said she took your animal communication class, highly recommended it. So I wanted, before we sign off, I wanted to give you the opportunity to, again, I know we mentioned your website earlier. Give us more of an opportunity to tell us about your classes, your workshops, and how we can maybe stay in touch with you if there's any social media platforms or YouTube.
Sure. My website, again, is intuitivedenise.com, and my name's spelled Denise. And I do have my workshop and in-depth class coming up in October. So I'll be starting another round of that. And on my social media handles are all at Intuitive Denise. So Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And I would love to see you there. I try to post videos. I've got things about fun stories from readings that I've had and things that animals have said to me. But also, I try to share spiritual tips and easy ways to incorporate more spirituality into your everyday life. Because I really feel that people are searching for something now. Times are changing where people are looking for more purpose. And if there's any way that I can help to do that, I try and share what I know.
Mm. Well, thank you. And I'll make sure to link up all of your information, your social media handles, and your website in our notes here. Denise, again, you're doing amazing work. Just wanted to thank you again for the work you're doing. And thank you for your time here on the Cat Dad Show. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Everybody watching, thank you so much. Those of you that asked questions, thank you for participating. I loved it. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.